Think of this, the global space economy is currently valued at about $360 billion. Now, despite being one among a few spacefaring nations in the world, guess what? India accounts for only about 2% of the space economy. With 76 countries having their own space agency, only 22 of them have active space launch capabilities. Now, humans have always been curious about reaching the stars and beyond. And governments around the world have tried to conquer space. Yet, only one country was actually able to put humans on the moon after World War II. Obviously, the US.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon on this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man.
But this human exploration of the moon seems to have come to a standstill 50 years later, and the US still hasn't sent a human to the moon. And now you'll ask me, why, Akshay? Why is that? Well, the same reason why you can't quit your job and spend the rest of your life touring the world. Lack of money. The US Apollo space mission costed $20 billion in 1973. The cost of the same in 2019 would be $120 billion. That is how expensive the domain is. Historically, the US and the USSR were the leading nations when it came to the race of getting the pole position in space. We had the wild frenzy of the formation of the International Space Station and sending a man on moon, and what looked like a monopolistic situation was actually a duopoly in the making. Time passed and we saw countries like China as well enter into the realm. But there was one country who was rising up the order to challenge the bigger nations. Well, you would have understood by now who I am talking about. India. Over the past few years, especially the last decade, India has made significant strides in the domain of space tech and outer space. With our history having the laurels of APJ Abdul Kalam and Vikram Sarabhai, the present is becoming better and greater. Chandrayaan 3 was probably the most notable mission undertaken by ISRO over the past few years. But we are witnessing a change in the Indian space sector. A change that was first seen to be very slow, but over time, it has started to really pick up pace. India is now at the cusp of a strong public-private partnership model when it comes to the space technology sector. And in today's video, we will understand how this is panning out. So see, there are four major reasons as to why we are seeing a surge in demand in the space sector. First, the increasing demand for satellite services. With new innovations in areas of satellite communication and other areas of application, including geospatial database services, there is an increased demand for space-based services and thereby the need for more players to venture into upstream and downstream sectors in space to provide commercial offerings. Second, the growing trend of emerging areas in the global sector. Future opportunities in fascinating areas like space tourism and commercial recovery of space resources are coming up, promising enormous scope of growth in this sector. Third, the very important complementary aviation and defense sector. Bangalore is ranked among the top 3 in global aerospace and defense cities in attracting foreign investment. And India is one of the top countries in the world in terms of defense procurement and allied production. Fourth, the critical, strong, adjacent industrial support. India is a leading innovator in machine tools, capital goods, with a robust IT and software sector. But to satiate this surge in demand, there needs to be active partnership between the public and the private sector. The Indian government, sensing a need, came up with the Indian Space Policy in 2023. This policy creates 3 distinct but related entities that will facilitate greater private sector participation in activities that have usually been the traditional domain of ISRO. In space, the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. It will be a single window clearance and authorization agency for all space launches, establishing launch pads, buying and selling satellites, and disseminating high-resolution data, among other things. NSIL, New Space India Limited. It will be responsible for commercializing space technologies and platforms created through public expenditure, as well as manufacturing, leasing, or procuring space components, technologies, platforms, and other assets from the private or public sector. Department of Space. It will provide overall policy guidelines and be the nodal department for implementing space technologies and, among other things, coordinate international cooperation and coordination in the areas of global space governance and programs in consultation with the Ministry of External Affairs. The impacts of these partnerships are going to be extremely pivotal for both the entities. For the public sector, ISRO will transition out of the existing practice of being present in the manufacturing of operational space systems. Hereafter, mature systems shall be transferred to industries for commercial usage. ISRO will solely focus on R&D in advanced technology, providing newer systems and realization of space objects for meeting national prerogatives. This will make ISRO use all its strength on cutting-edge research and development and long-term projects such as the very successful Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan. On the other hand, the private sector will focus on more operational and foundational level tasks, providing the right launch pad for ISRO to pivot and make groundbreaking changes. Now you see, most governments can't justify billions spent on space exploration when people in their country are struggling to make ends meet. This is why private space tech companies have come up to do what government agencies cannot. You might ask me, Akshay, what is the superpower that they possess? Well, these startups get funds due to the credibility of their billionaire founders or through venture capitalists. They don't need to carve it out of the country's budget. Plus, government agencies have to do zillions of things. For instance, ISRO has to create rockets for its launches, plan upcoming space explorations, and also spend on research and whatnot. Private startups, on the other hand, have it easy. They can focus on just one area, be it space tourism or launching rockets. This laser-sharp focus has increased our space prowess. With space companies focusing only on building rockets, we have figured out the key to build, that's right, reusable ones. This has massively reduced the cost of launching satellites into space from $200 million to $60 million. And trust me, it would go down to as low as $500,000. The Indian startups are taking an active interest in the space market. From just one startup in the space sector in 2012, the industry has grown to 189 startups in 2023. This is the new India. The funding received by these startups reached a total of $124.7 million in 2023 from only $67.2 million in 2021. Currently, space cooperative documents have been signed with 61 countries and 5 multilateral bodies. The global space industry is set to be worth a whopping $1 trillion by 2040. And we aren't just exploring space travel. There are a number of opportunities like 1. Space mining. Asteroids hold a lot of rare metals and elements. Just one asteroid, 16 Psyche, is worth $1 trillion. Mining them could help us deal with a shortage of these minerals on Earth. 2. Debris removal. Space might be infinite, but the real estate around our atmospheric borders is scarce. With too many satellites being launched, the risk of satellites crashing into each other is rising. Plus, there is a lot of space junk out there that threatens our safety. So some startups are removing this junk. Satellite manufacturing and launching. Data recorded by satellites and signals broadcasted by them impact every aspect of our lives. Just the business of manufacturing, launching, and operating these satellites is huge. So this sector again holds a lot of promise. And well, it seems that VCs agree with us. Because even though overall VC funding was down by 66% in Q3 of 2022, guess what? The space tech startup funding was up by 61%. All in all, through the public-private partnership in the space sector, we are on the cusp to see a lot of development take place. People keep NASA and SpaceX as the benchmark gold standard in this sector globally. But soon, we will be seeing ISRO and other private startups reach that level. This is Akshay. See you in the next one.